Alrighty, Lifter for Life here, bringing you guys a brand new video. This time around we got another Archetype overhaul for Nordic. Nordic is, as you guys probably know if you followed this channel for a long while, is one of my favorite archetypes. It really is. It's like right up in like the top 3, mostly due to because I'm just a big nerd for old like Norse mythology and Heck mythology in general. And it really does suck that this deck sucks so much. I love it. I've tried making it at least somewhat playable in almost every format, and it just doesn't work in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! And now, granted, the Link monster that came out along with the like one extra monster, forgot what his name was off the top of my head, both really help out the deck quite a bit. This deck is still in dire need of an overhaul. So first and foremost, let's talk about the general strategy of what Nordics do. Their general thing is they are, of course, a synchro archetype. They came out in the second to last, if I remember correctly, 5D's set. And they focus on summoning their god cards, Odin, Loki, and Thor, the 3 Azir. All of which were extremely powerful synchros for their time. But, however, they have shown their age. They can also, of course, go into other synchros. Thanks to Vanitas being a dark tuner, you can easily make Beals and stuff. They can also, of course, make other generic synchros like Clearwing and so on. But, however, their end goal strategy is making Odin, Loki, or Thor. The Link monster also gives the deck a lot more versatility, as due to its banishing for cost effect, you can banish other things that make use of being banished, like for instance the Metaphys or the Thunder Dragons, and other stuff like that as well, which is quite handy and adds even more usability and versatility for the deck, although also requires you running 2 separate engines that don't really coincide together too much other than that. Now, the issues, as I kind of hinted at already, the synchros are incredibly outdated. As much as I love Odin, Loki, and Thor, they are they're showing their age. They aren't as nearly as good as they were back then, and some would even argue that they were terrible back then when they came out. Heck, Loki came out in the same set as the Six Samurai Shien. Now, granted, Shien was a TCG exclusive, but considering you have 2 monsters that have basically the same effect, but Loki is objectively worse when he's harder to summon, is just pathetic. It's also most notable to note, almost every single one of their spells and traps is bad. There's some that are almost good, but very few of them are even worth considering running, and typically speaking, in my experience, you just end up cutting them anyways, even if they are on that teeter-totter edge of being almost good to run. Not even their search card is good enough to run anymore due to it being a trap card. And granted, I know what they were trying to do with the trap card aspect of it, but it didn't future-proof the card too much at all. The monsters are also overall incredibly mediocre. The main deck monsters, and heck even the extract monsters really. This is mostly due to the fact that their entire aspect is making the synchros, and they don't have a lot of spammability. The deck does not have a lot of inherent usefulness to the deck, and very oftentimes you're just normal set summoning a monster, trying to make the link, and then go off from there. And before the link came out, it was normal summon a monster, or normal set a monster, and wait for your opponent to do something and hope they don't kill you next turn. And on that note, they are very, very slow without the Link monster. So it really does go to show just how much Golovig helped the deck out. So first and foremost, let's tackle the spells and traps. I really want to see a new field spell. The current field spell they have is the Nordic Lights, and while it's not particularly bad, it is not particularly good either. It's on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give it like a 3. It's a very weird field spell, and it doesn't do much for the actual archetype's playstyle. And yes, on theory, on paper, it sounds interesting, making it to where your Nordic monsters can't be destroyed in battle, but considering that directly counteracts 2 of their main monsters in the deck, it's never been really used too heavily. It is a beautiful ultimate, I will say, though. I really feel like they could use a new search spell or trap, preferably a quick play spell or something. That way, so you can still make use of it as the trap card was intended, but however, you can also still, of course, use it to search out a monster. They need more protection, recovery, and negation. Something really nice to protect your god cards, like for instance, something that says that like, oh, your god cards can't be targeted or something. Something to recover your monsters from the graveyard, like an Archetypal Monster Reborn, or adding dudes from your deck to from your graveyard to your hand, and then maybe something to negate stuff, like maybe a counter trap. And I know it's basically just an Infernity Barrier, but yeah, give them an Infernity Barrier. Have them have a counter trap that says, oh, when a spell trap or monster effect is activated while you control a god card, one of the Azir, negate and destroy that card. And then maybe you can have a bonus effect like, oh, if an Azir is special summoned from the graveyard, you can set this card and then it gets banished at the end phase or something. I don't know. Something like that would be really nice. Now, something I've actually like gone and done is actually try to draw up some of my old cards. Not actually draw, because I suck at drawing, but like kind of design some. And something that I came up with is like maybe a really nice continuous spell. That basically gives you an extra normal summon and or can summon a Nordic or Azir from your graveyard or banished. That'd be really nice. Maybe lock you into only being able to summon Nordics to turn you use that. And then my idea for a field spell would be basically ripping off the Sacred Beast field spell. If you guys don't know, Lost Paradise is the Sacred Beast field spell. Sacred Beasts, of course, being Haman, Uriel, Uria, and Raviel. And that field spell is stupid good for the deck. It basically makes it to where your Sacred Beast can't be targeted or stripped by card effects. And then once per turn, if you control one of the Sacred Beasts, you get to draw 2 cards. And that's kind of my general idea with this, except kind of borrowing from the idea of the good old Crystal Beast field spell, give you more effects based on how many Azir you have on the field or in the graveyard. Basically, like, oh, the biggest thing it really is make the Azir quick effects, because the Azir, the fact that they're not quick effects really hinders them quite heavily. And then maybe make it to where like the field spell has some protection of its own, and also of course granting protection to your Azir, which is really, really nice. Another thing that I forgot to mention on here, I would really like to see a draw card for the deck. A simple like Destiny Draw style card that says discard a Nordic tuner, draw 2 cards. That'd be really, really handy. You get your tuners in the graveyard for the Nordic's revival effects, and then of course you also get to dig through your deck more, which is always handy. Moving on for fixing the synchros, I mentioned it earlier, but I really want to see these guys be made into quick effects, which I either want to see done through a other card like a field spell similar to the Orcists, or I would like to see Konami errata them to fix the effects. We only ever see Konami errata broken cards to make them more fair, but I want to see them errata bad cards to make them more actually usable. I don't think making the Azir's quick effects would make them particularly broken. It would definitely help out the deck, especially if you could get out Odin with Thor. Odin being able to make himself immune to spells and traps during your opponent's turn, and Thor being able to just blanket negate your opponent's monsters on the field once per turn is always handy. And of course, Loki being able to negate spells and traps actually any time other than just your battle phase would be amazing. The fact that Loki can only negate spells and traps during your battle phase, and he came out during the same set as Xian, who can negate a spell or trap card anytime, is just mind-boggling. So something that erratas them to make it to where you can actually use their effects during your first turn would be wonderful. On that note, if Konami doesn't want to do that, I am perfectly fine with more boss monsters. Something that actually is like particularly great. There's a whole pantheon of Nordic god monsters. You got Skuld, you got Verdandi, you got Hell, you got God, my brain is drawing a blank, but you got a million others. So many I can't even really think of all of them. And also something else I would really like to see is more intermediate synchros. Maybe not something that's like a broken boss monster, but like maybe a level 7 or a level 8 that can make it easier to go into the big guys, or act as just like an intermediate boss monster. Something that can really be handy when you can't make the Azirs, but also still, facilitate the archetype. And it's kind of hinted at with the level 4 that came out in the side set, in the main set. But I'd like to see them get more links. maybe a link 2 that you can make after YgoAmino. I know she says that like you're locked into what, Azir, I believe. So like maybe make it to where it's an Azir monster that's a link 2 or maybe even a link 3 or something. Just needs X amount of Nordics, and maybe make it to where you can actually like do some really cool things with them, give them more banishing effects, and being able to just plus even more with your Nordics and everything would be really cool. Moving on, the main deck monsters. Okay, so one thing that I really want to see Konami do is take advantage of the banishing aspect of this deck. We now have YgoAmino, who can banish 3 of your Nordics to do something. Well, actually, she can banish 3 of any of your cards to do something, which is why making use of the Metaphys or other banished archetypes in Nordics is so good right now. So making it to where the actual the actual Nordics have bonus effects based on getting banished would be handy, because then you could also make use of them being banished by your Azir to revive themselves. Imagine a Nordic tuner that says if this card is banished by the effect of an Azir or a Nordic monster, you can special summon it. Or, well, I mean, obviously YgoAmino would kind of lock you out of that, but, like, oh, it's in your graveyard, it's a Nordic tuner, you banish it for good old Odin. Odin comes back, gets you to draw a card, that monster's effect triggers, special summoning it. That would be really cool. Or maybe something that says, oh, when this card is banished by a Nordic or Azir effect, you can search out another Nordic monster, or add a spell trap card that says Nordic into text from your deck to your hand. That'd be really great. In general, I'd also really like to see more monsters that can special summon themselves from somewhere. Like a Nordic that says that, oh, if you control a Nordic, you can special summon this card from your hand. Or a Nordic that says that if it's in your graveyard, you can special summon it from your graveyard. If you have a Nordic or a Azir on your field, something like that. Another really big thing is that they need more good tuners. The deck's tuners are basically vanillas for the most part. The only ones that really matter for their effects are Vanitas and arguably Valkyrie. And even then, Valkyrie, you don't use her effect too often, because if you get ashed with that, or effect failed or something, I don't think you can ash it, but if that gets negated, you're dead. You lose. It sucks. So I'd really like to see the deck get more really good tuners, especially for like Nordic Beast. They only have one tuner, and that's Goldfax, and Goldfax is bad. Like he's a Cyber Dragon, but your opponent has to have a synchro out. And how often do you see synchros nowadays? Now then, also another thing that they kind of did with Vanitas, I'd really like to see more level alteration. This deck has a lot of really weird levels. They're trying to hit 10, so being able to alter the levels for the monsters would be really, really handy as well. Just, it'd be really great. I don't know why more synchro decks don't have level alteration. And that's really all I gotta say. This deck needs a lot of work. It probably needs another good 10, 15 cards that are designed with the modern era in mind. And I don't think Konami's going to do that. I would really like to see them do it. They've done it most recently with Destiny Heroes, and they're doing it, of course, with other archetypes as well. And, of course, TG as well. So maybe they might consider Nordics eventually. They did get 2 new cards. I'd love to see them get more. And yeah, the deck really just needs a lot of work, and just needs to be revamped for this modern Yu-Gi-Oh era. So what do you guys think? Do you guys like my ideas, suggestions? Do you have any ideas or suggestions of your own? Thank you all for watching. Have a great day. Of your birthday. Happy birthday. See y'all later, and peace out.